Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kory Reischling, and today I'll be talking to you about block and student teaching from a music major's perspective. So block is taken the last semester that you're taking general music classes at Texas State. I took it the same semester that I was finishing up my music classes and I was doing my senior recital. It is a 4.5 hour class that I took on Tuesday and Thursday, and was double blocked in my schedule, hence the name block. During the first part of block, we spent our time together at the university talking about teacher law and just the fundamentals of being a teacher. During the second part of block, we spent in an assistantship with a nearby school, and we all went to different schools in the Austin and San Marcos and San Antonio corridor. They paired us up with very knowledgeable teachers, and we spent most of the time just sort of watching the class, kind of going around, maybe helping some individual students. And then towards the very end of the block placement, we had to do a teaching video for 20 minutes, and we really just kind of got our feet wet in actual school teaching. After we completed block, the next semester, which would be our last semester, would be our student teaching semester. Now, during student teaching, you don't take any other classes at Texas State. You're only doing the student teaching. During that time, you're placed permanently at a primary school campus and then a secondary school campus. So our grade level was split up between half of us doing the primary, which is elementary school, and then half of us doing the secondary, which would be a middle school or high school during the first part of that semester. So for example, I took my student teaching in the spring. So January through March, which is the end of spring break, I was at elementary school. And the second part of my student teaching from after spring break onwards to the end of the school year was spent at a middle school. Now, during your student teaching placement, you're really gearing towards teaching an entire class all day long. So the first part of the class, when you first get there, they're separated into 7 weeks. And the first week, you're usually just observing, maybe kind of hopping in here and there, kind of like what you were doing during your block placement. But they have a breakdown of what they expect for you to be doing every subsequent week after that. So for example, during my elementary school placement, we taught 6 grades, K through 5. And the first week, I just kind of observed and helped out my teacher. And then each subsequent week, I added a class. So I believe that the second week I added 2nd grade, and I'd have to lesson plan for that class the week before, and then I teach my lesson every day during that class. And then the next week I'd have 2 classes, so I'd have 2nd and 3rd grade. And then the next week after that, I'd have 3 classes. And I would kind of trade out between teaching different grade levels to make sure that I was keeping it balanced between both the older kids and the younger kids. By the end of your student teaching placement, you're teaching the entire class system for the whole week that you're there. So K through 5 every single day, kind of like what a normal teacher would be doing. Now, during your student teaching placement at both the primary and the secondary campus, you are observed twice by a supervisor from Texas State. Now, you meet with your supervisor at the beginning of the year before you even go to your placements, and they just kind of give you a rundown of what their expectations are, what they're looking for in your observations that they come out to see, and they want like prepared lesson plans for you to give them and sort of give you the gist of what they want from you. Now, I was very fortunate to have two really good supervisors. I had a different supervisor who supervised me for my elementary placement, and then I had a supervisor that was different from Texas State that supervised me for my middle school placement. And both of them were very friendly with me, and they were very understanding, and they knew that we were very stressed out about them observing us. But their feedback really helps keep you in line with where you should be in the program and sets you up to be a successful teacher once you graduate. Now, my student teaching experience was a little strange because I was student teaching when COVID hit. So, like I said, I was student teaching in the spring of 2020, and the first part from January until March, I was at elementary school. So I finished my entire elementary school student teaching, and I actually started the first week of my middle school teaching because my middle school schedule was different than Texas State's spring break schedule. So I was there for a week, and then after that week was over, my school was going on spring break, and we never came back. So I was actually kind of fortunate in that way that I did get 1 week at my secondary placement before COVID hit and we all went and stayed at home, because a lot of the other student teachers had their spring break that week before during my placement week. And so they actually never got to go to their secondary placement and never met with who their cooperating teacher was going to be at that placement. So I was able to keep in touch with my cooperating teacher at the middle school I was placed at. And once everything kind of settled down and the craziness kind of ended in a way that the district could figure out what they were going to do moving forward, which inevitably became online classes. We got to have a lot of meetings between each other and talk about a game plan moving forward for her classes, which ended up being sort of a private lesson schedule. So we would meet with every student every week over Zoom to schedule a lesson for about 30 minutes and just kind of play with some music that we posted on the Google Classroom and just kind of talk with them, see if they're okay, and just kind of continue things not necessarily as normal, but just kind of as normal as we could. Now, we were fortunate at the middle school I was student teaching at because each of the three directors, including myself, specialized in a different instrument. So the head director was a trumpet player, and she did private lessons with all of the brass students. And then the assistant director at the middle school was a woodwind player. So he took all of the woodwind classes. And I was student teaching, and they didn't have a percussion director there. So I took over all of the percussion classes. Now, on top of that, I did teach a few woodwind lessons, and I taught a few brass lessons. That way that I continue to be well-rounded in teaching other instruments, because that was one of my concerns during my student teaching, because I was a percussionist, that I was a little bit weaker on winds. Overall, even though we did have to overcome a lot of adversities, I had a really great student teaching experience in both my block placement and at my student teaching placement. I learned a lot. I gained a lot of resources from my teachers and gained a lot of contacts through them and through the cooperative teachers I had and through my supervisors that set me up really well for whenever I started applying for jobs for the fall. Even though COVID impacted us greatly when I was doing my student teaching at the middle school, it better prepared me for when I'm actually teaching now and ways that we can teach online and teach in a new way that I would not have previously learned during my normal classes at Texas State. So that has been my experience with student teaching and Block. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below of what you'd like to see next, and subscribe to my channel while you're down there. And until next time, thanks for watching.